And now, the International Vienna for Everyone. And now, the International Vienna for Everyone.
I definitely would prefer, like, I don't have a preference, actually, to be honest. I never really thought about, like, what our startup would be focusing on. Like, would it be, like, to be a unicorn? I don't think that was a goal. To be a zebra, I think it's definitely, like, an intrinsic characteristic to any startup, because if you are not making an impact, why are you doing what you're doing, right? So, and then it's just about how do you classify and how do you define impact. So it can be a social influence impact. It could also be environmental. It could be even, you could have, like, for instance, political impact, right? So you can have, like, a social media. So kind of like this kind of impact. So what you do is also impactful. But so I think to have an impact is just an intrinsic characteristic of any startup, or at least it should be. Because if you're not really creating an impact, I think it's not
useful. Why are you doing that?
Yeah. I mean, why do you need to exist if you do not create a positive impact in any kind of sense, right? Yeah. So I think, for our startup, I definitely see that it will have an impact. And I do see that it will have an environmental impact because it's a new way of sending and receiving, right? So you remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think it will have an impact. And I also think it will impact also in a lot of ways how people, for instance, communicate. Is it mine? I'm so sorry about that.
That's fine. You gotta put that on silent.
Yeah, I did. I think there's an alarm somehow, which I set.
To wake you up at noon. It's good to know. You wake up at noon.
No. I think
a reminder or something.
I think it was reminding me to leave. Instead of setting at 10:25, I set at 11:25.
Well, good that I texted you earlier.
Yeah. So I think it's just something very innate. Yeah.
You just have a very American English accent. You live in the US or something?
No.
Anytime now?
No.
Where did you get our list?
Interestingly, I had a British accent when I was a bit younger.
British accent?
Yeah.
How many English accents did you change in life?
I think it really depends on the phase that I was, like, I'm surrounded, like the environment or the context I was surrounded by. So back then, I think it was just a lot of, like, British movies or British series or British songs.
Where were you living when this?
I'm from Canton, Guangzhou. It's in the south of China, really close to Hong Kong or Shenzhen, if you heard of it. So
I heard of Guangzhou. I heard of that.
Yeah, I think you told me also when we first met. Yeah. It's a very industrial city.
That's what I was going to say. We receive a lot of parcels from over there.
Really?
When I order online, a couple of times I receive parcels from there.
Yeah. So in general, I would say Guangzhou is the capital city of Guangdong province.
Uh-huh.
And Guangdong province is an area that is highly industrial, has a lot of, I would say, for instance, the toy factory of the world.
That's where Barbie was made.
Exactly, for instance. So a lot of, I think also shoes, lighting, furnitures. It's just a hub for a lot of, like, I would say, far sourcing companies from the West, let's say. So, it has also, I'm not so sure if it's still the biggest trade fairs, but it used to be, I think, the biggest trade fairs in the world, the Canton Fair. It's a huge fair, and for import, export.
When did you leave the city?
When?
Yeah, like at what age?
So I moved to Italy when I was 8.
Italy?
You mean to Guangzhou or Italy are we talking about?
I'm talking about Guangzhou. When did you first
I grew up there. I grew up there. So I'm Cantonese, and I moved there actually. So I was born there, and then I went to live with my grandparents. It's in the middle of China. It's in Hunan province. And I moved to Guangzhou when I was school age. So 5 years old, something like that, 5-6 years old.
And you moved to, like after your group passed, you said you moved also to Italy?
Yeah. So
where?
I studied until high school. Then after high school, I went to Milan to study for my university for a bachelor.
What did you study?
Interior architecture.
Oh.
Yeah,
Cool. That's the right place to do it, I guess.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You were happy with it?
Yes, very. So I stayed in Italy 3 years for my bachelor, and then I also worked for like around 3 years, I would say. So almost 6 years, more than 6 years in Italy in total. Milan was a great place because it is the design city. It has a great atmosphere. It has the people. It has like the spirit and the mindset to do what a designer has to do. It has a great kind of also offerings as well because it has the biggest furniture fair in the world. So every year you get to see the newest collections of all the most impressive and the best furniture brands and the most innovative products, the most kind of like new and inspiring technologies in the field of furniture design, architecture, and so forth. So it was just a very interesting and fun 3 years, and I also met great people there.
Yeah.
Really
Well, where do you work now? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm studying right now. Like
Study.
you? Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So after I started my startup, I'm also, I decided to go for a business degree. So I started applying for different business schools, and now I'm studying at Laudo Business School, International Business Management and Leadership. So just finished my first year and starting my thesis next year.
Just what you need to run the business.
Yes.
But how is it going? Like, and what stage are you?
We're in the MVP stage. So I would say still very early stage.
What do you mean with MVP?
So MVP means for the minimum viable product. I think you know that. And so essentially when I started, my first thing after the planning phase was to build the current kind of concierge MVP, I would call it, with no codes. So creating a product that is usable in the most simple and straightforward sense. So that's the website that you see. So I consider like a non-coded web app, so people can share their trips or the parcels they want to send. And that is the main purpose for that website or the web app is to really validate different ideas, also to validate that there is a problem or people that want to use the solutions. So for instance, that we get organic traffic and people sharing trips and so forth. So after like I kind of like follow back the users and kind of like interview them. So what was your experience? Like, what do you think of it? Was it useful? And then so people start like giving feedbacks, and you realize that there are a lot of like features that are missing in the current app, like the website, and a lot of kind of expectations are not really fulfilled. Maybe the flow is not exactly how they imagine it to be. So gathering all these information, and it comes to the conclusion that we need to like obviously improve the current version, but in a way also much more usable. And the conclusion is that we cannot do that without coding. So now we're starting to develop a mobile app in this case. So the mobile MVP, and to incorporate the functions and the expectations and the user flows and some key features in this version then, and to really create and develop it so that people can further like use it and to further validate this whole concept.
And it's called VIA?
Yes.
Or you like to pronounce it VIA?
VIA.
VIA.
Yeah.
And it's like, for example, I'm flying to China, and you ask me, hey, I have this thing that I've been planning to send to my family. Can you take it with you? But we do this conversation through your platform VIA.
Yes.
And I take it with me, and who gets paid for this?
You get paid.
I get paid for this, and you get commissions as VIA.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what if, like, because if we know each other, it's easy. But what if we don't? How do I, what is the guy or girl giving to me to send home to China?
Yeah. So the platform essentially acts as a mediator, which is very important because you're trying to like trust a stranger, right? In this context. So
which we already do in Airbnb, in car sharing, in any ways, but still.
We're very glad for them to like sort of laying out the paths for us. So people are familiar with the sharing economy model, we'd say. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, the platform acts as a mediator to facilitate first the process. So you have a go-to platform, one place for all your records. So the trips that you send, and then on the other side, you can reflect back to the sending parcel like request. So you always have a reference, and it's very clear. You can talk directly with one another. So this will be act also as an evidence and a proof, obviously. And also, so the recording function is just the most, like the first part of this transaction, so to say. And the second part is also that is, for instance, why we need to develop a coded app. So we can incorporate functions like ID verifications. So we can also validate your emails, for instance, your phone numbers. These are like the most basic functions or any apps that you can imagine, right? Also, ID verification then is a very good way to mitigate risks. So you really know that everyone is kind of under the radar. You know that this person has nothing to hide in a way. So the ID verification function would definitely kind of facilitate the process of trusting. And
I would also say, probably thought about that, but a lot of help comes from reviews.
Definitely.
And public feedback. So if pretty sure if I'm going to China and you're handing me a package, I'll read your reviews and see if you fucked up before or no.
Yes.
If you did, chances are I won't get your package. And it's also, people can start to learn that they should not fuck up with this application, because otherwise it's not going to be helpful for them anymore. They will be banned from the platform, might be banned from the platform, or no one will help them out anymore.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this is a solution for the customer, right? So why should they fuck up with this? They should take good care of it so they can use it again and again and again.
Definitely. So like all the app and platforms that is interpersonal, you have this review function like you just mentioned. And it's definitely a great way to navigate yourself through the selecting process. So if you have like 5 candidates with the same roots, you can easily kind of go through the comments and it's past like reviews to decide, okay, which is the most seemingly trustworthy one.
Yeah, definitely. Are you alone in this?
No, thank God.
How many? Thank God. Neither I'm alone, so I'm thank devil.
I think you would definitely have your like-minded to join you across way, but I do believe that it's a process.
Yeah.
So I soloed for like a year.
Oh, okay.
So
been here before.
That is difficult. That was for me, so it is still for you. I guess it's more challenging definitely to do everything alone, because not only because there's a lot of work to do and the workload, but most importantly, you do not have anyone to converse with.
Yeah.
So you do not have any kind of crashing of minds and ideas. And you're kind of brainstorming with yourself and maybe with ChatGPT nowadays, which is, I sometimes do that. But nonetheless, right, you do want to have like a counterpart or like your teammates who shares the same vision, but still be able to exchange and kind of discuss things, you know. It is through this process that your vision gets clearer.
Yeah. How many people are you in?
So we're, I would say 3 + 1. So we have Janos, he's a VU student, and he joined, I would say actually last year. I was at Entrepreneurship Avenue. Do you know this event?
No.
It's an annual event organized by VU, and essentially it's a pitching contest.
Entrepreneurship venue?
Entrepreneurship Avenue.
Okay.
Yes. It's a great event. I will share with you later.
Thank you.
Yes. Great people there. So anyways, Janos joined during that event after I pitched, and now recently a new member on board, Felix from Romania, and he is
Felix from Romania. I know him.
Which one?
A bit of a skinny guy, a bit tall, sort of
skinny,
my look in a sense.
He is studying at TU.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I know him because we are in the same program. We do the CF program. I don't know if he mentioned that to you.
Incubator.
The incubator, yes.
Yes. Oh,
yes.
Really?
So that's how I know him. I've known him like last month or something. Oh, this month. We started in July. We are still in July. Yeah.
I also just knew him like for a month, a bit over a month.
He looks like a very ambitious guy, and he's been working in a lot of things, I think, right now. He also wants to, he looks like a nice guy. And good that he's on board with you.
He is.
Well, what is he covering? Yeah.
So he's the tech guy, I would say, so far for the team that we have. Since of his like background in computer science, and now he's still studying in the similar field in TU. So, but he's also a guy with, like, as you know him, great ideas, very active, very fast in mind. So he is definitely right now we're working hand in hand for the MVP, where, for instance, I would be covering most of the web design. And once we kind of settle all the mock-ups and so forth, we're going to carry on to, for instance, the back end and develop all the way to the front end. So then the plus one is actually a member that I found via LinkedIn. He is super senior. He is super active for his age. He's also, I think, parallelly working on several startups at the same time. So super competent, super obviously very intelligent. But I think he will be, since I think the limit of energy or resources, he will be on the advisor board. So he will give us like what he thinks about some of the, I would say when it comes to key decision making, some key directions and so forth, with his experiences and expertise, also some knowledge in a lot of various aspects. So
it's great to have a really, really senior person when you're in a startup. He can, it's basically can see the future. I can tell you how things work because it's, I guess we're pretty much the same age here. So we're still not there yet with some even life experiences or maybe business experiences that he might have.
Definitely.
But it's great that you also included this generation.
Yeah, very grateful. So I'm also very happy that I found like someone who not only kind of appreciates your idea, but also has the interest to be a part of it. Yeah. So I think finding and building a team is, I would say, for a startup, the most important and also the most challenging part, because your startup is your team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So until you build like a really comprehensive team with the skill sets that you need to do what you want to achieve, that everyone shares that vision and also shares the same level of dedication, it is the biggest engine of a startup. So yeah.
Do you think you're more challenged because you're a female in leadership? Or that's just a myth nowadays?
Honestly, no.
Do you think that things would have been easier if you were male?
Actually, no. No.
Okay.
I think when it comes to, so the thing is, there is the myth, obviously, and I don't think it's a myth, it's a fact. So statistically, it is true that, for instance, females receive much less funding than male leading or only male like teams. So that's why there are organizations like Female Founders to really change the game, and they are doing great things. But I think the reason why I said no is because I haven't got to the phase where I'm directly confronting with, let's say, one of the most like the biggest obstacle or the biggest challenge during a startup phase. So raising funds and so forth. I would say so far I've only talked with a lot of VCs. I never felt like...
So VCs?
So venture capitalists or just in general angels, like angel investors.
Okay, so people that invest in your business and they get a share of it, right?
Yes, exactly. So I talked with a lot of them, obviously through pitching events, even private settings and so forth. I never really felt that they kind of like want to push me away because I'm a woman. And thank you for that. But I think... yeah, I don't know if things will be like kind of like switch or like twist a bit if we really get on that stage and kind of like pitching in front of a group or like when the game gets serious, right? I never really had that experience so far because we're not there yet. So I can keep you updated by then.
Definitely.
But I'm happy that so far I don't feel like I get discriminated because I'm a woman and I'm doing a startup. I think it's also maybe it's Vienna. I guess it's actually I feel like there's a lot of also female active female entrepreneurs here. So I think it's a great vibe here.
I get the female part, but is it more difficult because you're a foreigner here?
Yes.
Also in legal terms, not
Yes.
just like discrimination terms. So would it been easier if you had a different citizenship or resident permit or?
I think that one of the biggest obstacle, and I think you would agree with that as well, is the language barrier because none of us are native German speakers. So in a lot of events and settings, and even a lot of, for instance, individuals who are making the decisions kind of tend to, for instance, speak only German. Yeah. And therefore, like I would say, especially when it comes to more official kind of
confrontation.
Exactly. Then the barrier really stands out a lot. I think for a foreigner here to do a startup is difficult because you need a reason to be here, right? So you're either studying or you're working.
Yeah. Which automatically takes out like 30 hours per week from your time.
Yes, exactly. So you need a reason to be here first. The startup founder permits, which exist, is not, in my interpretation, because I tried to get that permit, and even when I started it, the moment I talked with one of the, I forgot his exact title and position, but
from what institution?
From WKO. So WKO has like this Abteilung only for startup. So he's the head of this Abteilung, and I also like shared this information. So I was like telling him, okay, I tried to get this permit right now, startup founders permit, and you can immediately tell that he knows that it's not gonna like result in anything because it's just extremely difficult to get it. Everyone internally also knows that because it goes through IMS. So it's
like a joke.
I wouldn't say a joke, but it's just not really in startup terms very compliant in the sense that, for instance, the Stammkapital that it requires is like 50K.
Which is
so
very...
I mean, then you have to say, okay, how do you define startup? Because how do you define an early stage company, right? So for some PEs, like if you're Series A, you're still an early stage company. But for me, who is like really just starting off, Stammkapital of 10,000 euros or 50,000 euros is a lot.
Yeah.
So that was very challenging. So in the end, I think...
Because it's like the chicken or the egg. So you don't have the chance to go to the 50K, and you don't have the chance to go to the 50K because you don't have a resident permit as a startup or... Where I'm going to start with this.
Yeah. So I would say, I think that permit, for instance, sounds more like a business immigration permit rather than a startup founder's permit. In the most modern sense and in the most startup sense, I would say. Of course, depends on how competent you are as a founder. But for me, it posed some like very, very obvious obstacle. So at that front. So I would say to start up in Vienna without any kind of already ground setting in Vienna would be difficult. So if you just want to come over and do a startup, it's not the most convenient thing to do, I would say. So for instance, I think in Estonia, they offer also like digital citizenship, meaning you can kind of like just register your company there and have an entity and
get access to some public.
Yes, exactly. And so you kind of like work in their system, but you don't live there. Yeah, for instance. So
that's brilliant. So they can get all the ideas and they don't even have you in the country.
Yes, you don't. I don't think you can actually access the country with that permit, which is very interesting. But I know that a lot of companies do that because you just need an entity and you just need to kind of start off, right?
But a lot of big companies have come from Estonia, also Sweden as well. But Estonia, for example, Bolt is from Estonia, as far as I know.
I'm not so sure about Bolt.
That's from Estonia that I know. And the nice thing about it, that not just about Bolt, but I like how this company became big, because I'm pretty sure they had a hard time to answer the question, how about your competition? Because it's so similar to Uber, but it was still a good deal. And that this like throws away the idea that if there's a competitor out there, then you have no chances. Like, no, you do have chances because there's a big market and there's market for everyone.
Yeah.
Or for a lot of them. Like, it's like bars. Tonight I'm going to this bar and tomorrow I'm going to another bar. That's it. Like, what, we have only one bar now? where everyone will go. No, so
Yeah, I don't think any product is for everyone. There's no product that is for everyone.
you just meet the taste of some people, and then the other competitor will meet the taste. Like Bolt is black, Bolt is green, and Uber is black, and some people will jump on Bolt just because they like green.
Yeah. So definitely, I think it's definitely one of the strategy of that country to kind of propose these kind of offerings. And therefore, in that sense, for instance, you're just much easier to kind of retain those entities who will most likely generate, for instance, tax incomes for the governments in the future, and so forth, which, in that sense, it would be difficult for a foreigner to do a startup here from ground zero up in Vienna.
By the way, I see that the population of Estonia is about 1.3 million people. It's not like a big, huge country that is producing big startups because it's a big country. It's just 1.3. It's less. It's smaller than Vienna. Just the whole country.
Yeah.
So that's. You think that still in Vienna is going in the right way in this?
From what
Because I see it's hyped, like now it's becoming the nest of startups, at least in the media.
I feel the same, to be honest. I mean, of course, I haven't been here long enough to say, okay, what it has been and what it is now. I can only say from what I've heard and what I really feel, experienced myself, I do think it has a great vibe here. I do think it has a great kind of environment to do a startup here if you are here. I think it has great offerings, for instance, Vienna business agencies and several government funds. So that lays a good ground for you if you do have a validate idea, a good business kind of like model and good thinking and intention behind it. So if you possess one of these things, I think is a great place to start in Vienna. So I can't really complain. I think I've been through the hurdle of the permits part, and now I don't have to deal with it anymore, thankfully. And I know also that they are trying to revolve the system. I know that they're trying to improve the system to make it easier, because I was always kind of in contact with them. And I know that the pushing forward is going to take time. Yeah. But it is going forward.
Yeah, so, I think since October, they also changed something in the roadway. So
exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's also kind of like a competition, because Europe is just like between countries. Then you kind of have this rival of talents, rival of like great businesses, like to own great companies, for instance. So, for instance, Germany is also pushing forward with these kind of policies and so forth. So it's actually a matter of like catching up with each other and trying to create more unique offerings, I guess, from this perspective. But I think it's, from what I heard also as well, it is just so much better than maybe, 10 years ago. Yeah. And so forth, the people who are really experienced and really well set in the field. So
I'd say that 10 years ago, you couldn't even speak easily in English in Vienna.
Really?
It was hard to get along in English. It wasn't normal at all that you just go to a bar and talk to everyone in English, or to a restaurant or to a supermarket.
Really?
That's what they say, people who've been living here longer than me. So it was just different mentality. Then Vienna started to come in the media as the most livable city in the world. And I guess more companies moved here because of its stability, and more people moved here. So then things started to change. That's how they tell the story.
Interesting.
And how do you compare the business scene or the startup scene with China? Or China is big, but maybe the state you're from or the city you're from.
That's the part where I think I wouldn't be able to answer it so well, since I'm a bit disconnected since the past 3.5 years. I was not also very involved in the startup scene when I was in China. I did work there for a bit over 2 years in Shanghai, though. I feel like, I guess it must be very different. I think the competition, though, as always, as everything is in China, is just much more relentless and much more competitive and much faster. And you survive or you die, that kind of like settings, I guess. I was talking with a friend, Chinese friend, just yesterday, and we were talking about like this because he's also doing a startup parallelly in Vienna. And I have never really been in the scene, as I said, in startup scene in China. So from what I've heard, according to him, is that it's just you have to act super fast. You have to be super
more aggressive.
Yes, very aggressive, very agile. You need to kind of implement as fast as you can, because if you don't, in the blink of an eye, someone else have already done that. Yeah. So the market is super responsive, also because of the market size in general, the population and everything. It's much more digitalized than here. So everything immediately, the go-to market is like in even a day or two. And you immediately see, okay, is this clicking or not, right?
Yeah.
So I think the startup scene in China, especially in cities, maybe like big cities like Shanghai, Shenzhen, also very tech, like big tech cities in Shenzhen, for instance, the scene is definitely much more harsh, maybe a bit like the US, for instance. I can only compare the economy much closer with US and China, not only because of the scale, but also in general, the mentality of people and how things like evolve and work around. I think it's probably a bit more similar to the US than to Europe. Yeah.
Do you miss home?
A little bit. I haven't been back for 3.5 years now because of COVID. It was a crazy time. I did not expect that. So
well, no one did that.
Yeah, exactly. So I came to Austria and I kind of got stuck in here because during COVID, going back was impossible, not just because you have the quarantine and everything, but also the plane tickets were absurd. It was really obscene. It was min distance, like starting from 3,000 up, 4,000.
A round trip to China?
Even one way. So, I mean, round trips normally are also very economic. It doesn't but one way.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just not possible.
But now the situation is better, or?
Yeah. It's completely open
You're planning
again.
to go there?
Yeah. I'm going later in September.
Oh, wow.
Finally. Yeah.
Finally. Almost 4 years until September.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's left there from family?
So my whole family is there.
Your whole family.
Yeah.
Your parents, your grandparents.
Yeah, exactly. And also all my relatives, my brothers and sister, they're all in China. Yeah.
I'm very curious because you were first you were first Chinese that I meet, and I really get to talk. Not that I meet, but I get to talk to and get some. So I'd like to get some insights about things how work in China. I'm very personally curious about it, because they say China is still communism, right?
Yeah, I mean, of course we are.
But at what degree? Because when now you're mentioning a lot of things before about business, and it sounds a lot like capitalism rather than communism.
I think it's the most capitalized market.
And also, maybe you don't know, but 50 years ago, China and Albania had a huge, strong relationship. I don't know if you heard of that. So it was we were like the satellite of China in Europe. Albania was, maybe if you'd ask your parents, they might know about it. And you were exporting stuff in our country and supporting us in a very personalized way. Until we fucked up your funds and we started building bunkers and armies and shit, and then you disconnected because, of course, we wasted your money. But anyway,
I have to admit my ignorance on that front. And also
I guess no one knows about that except us.
The thing is, I have to also say I'm not very politically active, so not like the general Viennese.
Okay.
So I think I can't really comment so much on in general politics. I would say not just China, but overall. I try to get myself informed, but not to a very thorough level.
But an overall view, because anyway, I wouldn't understand the very detailed.
I mean, that's the thing, right? A lot of people have this concept of communism, but it is very much from textbook sense, text sense. No one really, I don't think many of them, only a few countries in the world really lived in a communist setting. So apart from China, let's say the Soviet Union and Cuba and so forth. So I think a lot of people have never really been through what it is or what communists was striving to be. And therefore, it's always kind of like a concept in their head and some scenarios in their head of what communism is. And until you really go to China, I think you would not really...
You're like, where is communism here?
Exactly. Yeah. Also, you would not experience the Chinese version of communism. So I would say I don't feel like it's as oppressive, let's say, as the Westerners here would normally imagine. And I think there is definitely a level of kind of like control, surveillance, and so forth.
Is there easy to freely speak in public or to complain in social media?
Depends on what
like for the government against the government, for example. If there's a new regulation for the government, can people just easily post stuff online like fuck this, fuck that? What do you have there? What is the main role? The prime minister?
I don't think I've really seen people just very kind of criticizing, very aggressively criticizing.
Because they're afraid or because they like actually what the government is doing?
Maybe both. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I never really got into also... The thing is, Chinese people are not very politically active. I would just say...
Might be one of the reasons why then this capitalist oppression is still so active, because people are not politically critical, like they don't think critically against the government. Or
I think there could be a lot of, like, let's say, assumptions here. So you could always try to kind of get to your version of truth also. I think it's very hard to kind of... What I would also, like, I kept telling also people in general when they kind of inquire some kind of trying to validate a certain idea of China with me, is that I would just suggest them to just go there and really see it for themselves. And that's also the reason being, it's not that what you see will be the truth, but it will be at least giving you some kind of context and kind of ground setting to make judgments for your further research, let's say. So that's also how I kind of like make my own speculations and then my judgments. And I try to kind of like see it for myself and just, okay, is this really what this is? And I think for China it's definitely so, because you have the media, Chinese media would say something, and then the Western media would say something else, right? Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they don't. I think to live in China, though, is very critical, even for Chinese. So if you're not living there, like me, I'm not living there, it's very hard also for me to kind of really get a grasp of what exactly is going on, what exactly is the general like sentiment of the public towards the government, what is in general the kind of like market atmosphere dynamics and so forth, how's the economy currently and like really is like. Because it really comes down to the details, right? So the nuances and also the how close you zoom in really differs from what really is. So from paper and reporting. So sometimes you look at from a very far and very large scales, you zoom out a lot, then you lose some clarity on very specific things.
How is it, and how true is it? But American companies building like factories in China, and is this something that still goes on, that new companies open there, or is just something that has been there from the past and now they have stopped it? And what do people say about it? Do they agree because it opens new jobs, or they are against it because they pay badly?
I think during ever since the COVID, the global supply chain has really like waken up from the fact that, for instance, like far sourcing is not the smartest thing to do. So your supply chain needs to be much more responsive and agile, and also much more like risk proving, so to say. So you do need to have more like agility in your supply chain. And so, for instance, China being branded as the global factory, meaning that a lot of like companies setting factories there thanks to like, let's say, the lower labor costs and so forth, even material costs and so forth, is definitely changing now. To which level, which degree, I did not research on that, so I would not prawn like any data here.
Normal opinion.
But I definitely think, yes, there is definitely a shift in how companies will with Chinese producers. It's just, I think, a very sensible thing to do. And how it will be in the future, it also depends on how I would say largely on, for instance, geopolitical tensions, maybe. So very explicitly with Chinese, U.S. Government, U.S. Companies in China in this case. So how the Chinese government policies will be. So is it very incentivizing? Is it really like encouraging or not? Right?
How do you deal with with the opinion that Western countries think or people think that what's made in China, it's of low quality? Do you like go against that idea, or do you say, because I as far as I know, also Apple is made in China, right? Like it's produced in China. So, and all Americans at least buy Apple. But if they see made in China in other products, they might have the idea that, oh, this is not a good quality, I'm not buying this. And especially in the US, they don't want to buy China, even they think they're not buying China, but they buy a lot of China because they just don't read some labels.
Yeah. I think there is, like, I don't really have a strong, like, I would say sentiment towards that comment.
Yeah, like,
because there's obviously there's certain level of truth to that. It's not just, I don't think it was kind of, I wouldn't say that is for everything, right? So I lived in China, and obviously I also had great products that is made in China, produced by Chinese companies, various different kinds of products. Like you said, for instance, Apple was outsourced, is, I think, still outsourced in China. And what makes a big difference is that Apple's a brand. And the brand itself kind of has this very clear vision on what it's expected of itself.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is the pity that still, like, despite how fast the economy has grown in China and accelerated, there has been very few brands, for instance, Chinese brands, like China made, China built, that is known to the world. Just only a handful. So let's just, for instance, Huawei, and let's say the tech.
So it's hard for Chinese companies to go outside of China and like succeed globally.
I think it's definitely challenging. Yeah, I think Huawei is a very successful example. I think they're very. I think it's also one of the most well-known Chinese brands outside of China as well. I guess BYD is also a great brand. They make e-cars, so electronic cars. I think one of the biggest rival of Tesla, in the sense of market share. And so in that case, in this sense, I think it's just a pity that there still hasn't been a lot of great Chinese brands that is like known to the world. So I also think Chinese people are not very focusing like on branding so much. Like I would say the companies.
Well, it's not. It's just it's a matter of mentality. They didn't focus on marketing and branding and.
Maybe. I mean, in China, I have to say the marketing is astoundingly good.
But it's also, we have to consider it's a huge country, so maybe the need to sell outside China, it's not even there. Why would they just struggle to sell outside China when the biggest market probably it's there and they all speak the same language? So it would involve just translating everything, putting up new agencies abroad to distribute and to market. So why would they do that? I somehow understand that as well.
I think for certain products, for sure, right? For instance, like fast forward, like I would say, like for instance, some products like fresh products, anything that has to do with like food or e-commerce, for instance, like like Alibaba.
Alibaba.
Alibaba is actually already global, right? So it's very well known. But let's say Taobao, the Chinese company that is like the Amazon of China, let's say, so to say it in a way, but in a much more in a much bigger scale, as in how popular it is in China. Yes, it does not need to really necessarily expand itself outside of China because it serves the Chinese people, and the main kind of like market is where it is located. So according to what you said, it doesn't really probably need to expand far outside to China. It's a lot of effort of going global. So it takes time. So I guess Huawei did a really good job. It took, I don't know how long, but they really were one of the first few brands that really went global. Right?
But are they also like leader within China?
Yes.
So they're not only famous outside China.
Yeah. So I would say Chinese people, they also, a lot of them, like me, myself, for instance, big Apple fan. So I also buy Apple products. That's what I mean by branding. So people don't recognize you simply for your quality. They reckon they need to kind of associate with something.
Yeah.
So a branding is it's also not just a logo, right? So
Definitely.
Exactly. So in that sense, I think we still need to catch up on that front. I don't think there is anything that we intrinsically, innately aren't able to do. But we need to kind of be maybe, especially when you go global, that you really probably want to consolidate your branding first and really have a strategy behind that to kind of like present yourself on the global market and say, okay, this is who I am, this is what I represent, and so forth. Yeah.
Has it ever happened to you when you were living in China that you've seen a product of whatever product it is that it's not made in China? Does China import?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah, of course.
I never thought about that.
Of course, we import a lot of products. Yeah.
What is the most popular thing that you might import that says made in and something else, not China? And where do you import mainly?
A lot of different products. I would say that's where the brands really rushed in. So if you're living in China and you're buying something imported, you're normally going for like this signature products from that country. So for instance, Apple. Well,
in this case, Apple is anyway made in China. So I would say something like totally from outside that it says made in Iran, Germany.
Okay, so I would say first thing that comes to my mind, apart from obviously food, like different cheese or chocolates and these kind of products, consumer goods. So apart from these consumer goods that you use very like on a daily basis, that is indeed made, brand, and produced from another country because of the resources and the factory and so forth. Luxury goods.
Okay.
Any luxury brand that you can think of. So yeah, like fashion brands, I would say, for instance, liquors. So good whiskey, for instance, right? Wine, for instance. All of the, I would say in general, the high fashion brands. Cars. Yeah.
In terms of, because I heard all sorts of things regarding the social medias in China. Some are forbidden, some are not. What do you use and what do you not use? Not you personally, but also the country, China. What is Facebook banned in China?
Yeah.
So no one has Facebook in China?
Oh. Yeah, really? I have, everyone I know has Facebook. So there's this, that's also one funny thing because a lot of people think that, okay, because of the sanction and the surveillance and everything, you can't access these platforms. And the truth is, you do, and it's very easily accessible via VPNs. So
you don't get spotted via.
No, the VPN
you get spotted here now. So if you download online, for example.
You download what?
If you download online illegally, so you might get a fine at home.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet, so I wouldn't know. But in China, essentially, yes, everyone I know has Facebook because a lot of people actually are living outside of China as well. They also, like me, studied overseas, majority of them. And it's just very common that you just have an account on Instagram or Facebook.
Okay. But WhatsApp? Also WhatsApp is, but generally WhatsApp is also banned, right?
Yes.
Do you have like another social media that replaces it?
So in China, you'd only need this one app for everything. So WeChat.
WeChat?
Yes. You don't have a WeChat account?
No, I never heard of it before.
Oh, okay. Let me lead you into the world of WeChat. It is the app for everything in China. And I would tell that to every foreigner who needs to go to China, that it's the first app that you need to download, and you need it. You really need it, because not only it's good for communication, so you can chat, you can share like stories, you can share. It has, I don't know how many functions. It literally has countless functions. But it's also, apart from communication, it's also an app where you pay for everything.
Okay.
It's also an app. Yes, it's also an app where you order all kinds of products and services. So you want to call a cab, use WeChat. You want to send a parcel, use WeChat. You want to, I don't know.
Donate blood.
Yes, everything. It's almost like if you are a company in China and you don't have a WeChat like public account for your company, you don't probably exist. Like it's not possible. It's like then you must be really, really small, only serving the more like regional products or like regional markets. And
it's like Instagram here, like every company has Instagram, and
even more. I would say even more, because it's just so powerful. So it's like, if you like, it also has like moments and also stories. So if you're posting any news, any kind of like articles, any kind of
I'm very, now that you're saying this, I'm very curious about its interface. How do they include all these things?
Yeah, I would say it's really, really usable, to be honest. I actually prefer it than WhatsApp, because it's just smarter in a lot of, right? Yes, it's smarter in a lot of senses. So for instance, you can, like, I think it's the first app that you can send voice messages, if I'm not wrong.
Before WhatsApp?
Yeah, definitely. Way before WhatsApp. So you can send voice messages. You can convert the voice message to a text message. You can send money to each other, for instance.
Oh, now I see how it looks.
You can have all kinds of subscriptions. You can have group chats. You can have like the TikTok channels also there. It has so many plugins as well. So a lot of service providers, like I said, for instance, Uber, or like I would say, I don't know if Uber is really used. I think Uber was like, I think the subsidiary in China was bought by Didi. So Didi is a similar company like Bolt and Uber. Okay. So essentially those companies would develop like plugins for WhatsApp. So you could very easily access the service via WhatsApp, because people don't want to download like 20,000 apps for 20,000 different purposes. So they just kind of like, you always have that plugin where you just search for the company or the service, and then the plugin pops out and you just go through whatever you need to do there. And you pay also through WeChat in this case. So it's just the place for everything.
Well, it sort of says that the mobile phone does as well. You have everything in your mobile phone.
Yes.
So it's anyway a mobile phone within a mobile phone.
It's definitely an aggregation of services and products. So it's super convenient. It's well made, I would say. It hasn't changed that much in its interface, which is also quite interesting, how it maintains its like coherence throughout the years. But yes, so that is like the one thing you need in China.
Do you have TikTok? Are you on TikTok? Why?
I don't know.
It's not your thing?
No, I don't like to download apps if I don't need them. Mm-hmm. Like I think it's one reason being that I have limited space on my phones.
Okay.
Of my phone. So I don't use TikTok. No. I don't.
What's the thing with it? Why did it suddenly pop up like that and went global, and why they're trying to ban it? It's because just like the usual sort of trying to push down what comes from China, I think, from Western countries, or?
Yeah, I guess I don't really know. I don't really know the thinking behind this policy, to be honest, because I
But it's
was
very
not part of
popular
it.
in China, right?
Sorry,
But TikTok is very popular in China.
it's a Chinese company.
Yeah, I know, but it's like the highest social media what people mainly use, right?
I would say, definitely a lot of people use TikTok nowadays in China. Definitely. Like, I mean, you can. Yeah, I think a lot of people I know use TikToks.
Is there an addiction, overall addiction from in China about social media and TikTok that you don't see it, for example, in Vienna? You think people spend more time on social media back there or no?
Well, I don't think there's consensus. Also, I haven't done any research on that.
Well, you might know this when you're not.
I don't know if there is actual like at first, I don't know how addictive people are here for TikTok.
Well, I mean, in general, when you jump in a metro, you notice somehow who's staying on the phone and who's not. And how if you notice the same thing in China, for example, if there are more people doing that, if everybody doing that or not?
I cannot tell for sure, but I guess it would be like, I mean, people are very similar in the end, regardless of where they come from, right? So I would say your brain and your like physical needs and your psychological needs are very similar also across different cultures.
Totalement européenne.
Yeah, justo. So, so I would imagine that it's the same, I would say. And even before TikTok came through, there was Instagram, and it was also kind of like, it already started with this addiction. So like this phenomenon of addiction, so to say. So I can imagine, yeah.
You've been doing a lot of things recently, like your startup, the company, work, and studying. What do you do for fun?
I enjoy working. If
That's
that sounds
a fun thing.
Yeah, that's very fun to do at startup. As I said, like I was telling you, like it's like to have a teammate is to be able to kind of share your thoughts and really kind of wrestle with each other on like a mind level. For me, that's like the most interesting thing and the biggest fun that I can have. Like I love not debating, but I definitely love to understand how another person is thinking. I love to also understand their thinking process. I like to exchange thoughts and ideas. I like to hear new things. And you only know that if you only get those inputs if you're reading or you're trying to actively search for those things, or if you're talking with a person.
Yeah.
So what's fun about talking with a person is that it's much more dynamic because it's an exchange, right? So it's not single-sided. Yeah. So and also very interesting is like you can keep asking questions. So that's why also ChatGPT was a bit addictive for me, because I could just keep asking questions. And so if you're talking with a person, obviously this person comes with a very like unique set of experience, backgrounds and experiences, and then you can just really try to pry into their worlds. Okay, listen to what they have gone through, where did this come from, for instance. And those are very original and authentic, and those are for me like very juicy. So I like work. I enjoy doing startups. I enjoy doing my startup, and I enjoy in general talking with, let's say, the startup fellows.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of fun like that. So apart from that, I try to get some rest.
Like doing what? Going to the movies, doing sports?
Yes. So I run, yoga. That's the two things I do, I would say. And then I sleep a lot. If I can.
By your reminder at 11:25.
Again, a clarification. That was like reminding me to leave, but to come here. But if I can get enough sleep, that's the best thing. I love to read as well, so it kind of calms me down. I love also actively just research topics that I interested in, like just, I don't know, keyword pops into my mind. I was like, okay, what is this? And so I like to go through YouTubes because actually there you have a lot of kind of resources. Very interesting, I would say, video contents, be it talks, be it interviews, be it documentaries and so forth. I think that's just so little time for everything.
Yeah. What do you read usually? What are you reading?
So currently I'm reading a book called The Precipice. Like it's like
Precipitation.
No, The Precipice. The Precipice.
What's that?
It's
Finding and okay, there's The Precipice by Toby, or Existential Risks,
like
the Future of Humanity.
Yeah. It literally just a consolidation of how humanity can be ended and what are their potential risks and how high are those risks.
Are you interested in this? Because you think we gotta be here when the humanity ends?
That would be a funny thing to see in a way.
Isn't that kind of depressing in a sense to see how the humanity will end while we have the best of luck not to be there when it will end? So we are only the good part of humanity when it's going to be here and we're going to live and the humanity is going to live. But suddenly there's a book that tells you, hey, but we're all going to die soon and this is the worst is coming. The apocalypse is almost here in 2,000 years, or I don't know.
This book actually, it's less depressive, but also very subjective in the sense, very objective, because it's not in the sense, oh, we're all going to die soon.
Where it says like, oh, only some will die soon.
But it's much more of an analysis. It's much more of analysis of the scenarios that can cause an extinction of humanity. And what are those chances? Some are higher, some are lower. Why? And what could potentially be caused by, like, for instance, obviously nuclear. One very simple example, because of the the current situation. If that ever happens, that probably would not cause a distinction, but definitely it will erase a very large part of our civilization. So it will bring us backwards maybe a long time. And that's one of them, for instance.
But do you believe that? Do you agree with what you are reading?
As a simple answer, yes. Because the thing is, these are estimations, right? So it's about probabilities. And probabilities are based on data. So how much data we have, and also it's forecasts and predictions. Then it's even more hard to say if this is a right kind of speculation and kind of projections. And I do not also have the knowledge to say, okay, this is a good judgment or this is a bad one. But I think what is interesting is just to see him laying out the facts there and just going through them chapter by chapter and say, okay, that has happened. And this will really cause this, right? So those things are very logical and those things are very sensible. And those things are very easy to kind of concur with because they're facts. And then that's why I don't feel like it's very depressing to read, because the speculations, or let's say the estimations of potential risk, let's say 5%, 0.1%, these numbers are still estimations. So it's very hard to say, okay, this will really be it. And some of them are also very small numbers, and you will probably know that you're going to go through this life without witnessing some of those happenings.
How did you find out about this book?
It was very interesting. So my boyfriend was talking to me about this. He shared a website with me. I think it was something he came across on YouTube. It's called 60,000 Hours, if I'm not mistaken.
60,000 hours?
Yeah, you can check it up. It talks about finding meaningful missions in your life.
So it's like self-help?
No. I would say it's much more like kind of giving yourself inspirations. I think it's also an organization in general. Like it helps people to kind of get an overview of the most pressing issues of the world that we're living today. And it helps you to, and it encourages you to dedicate your work and your time and your energy on very meaningful causes.
So it is self-help.
Really? Okay.
Sounded 100% certain. Helps you to find inspiration and to find the meaning.
I see. Okay. Okay. That's, yeah. Okay, then so be it. In any case, I think it was very interesting. So for me, I never really thought about, okay, I need like a glance, an overview of like what are the most pressing like issues that I can work on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know what I like, so I have my interests and my kind of like motivations and everything, but it's still very interesting to see, okay, what else can I do? Like, yeah, right? So I looked into it, and essentially, there's a lot of content. So what they also offer is that apart from the contents on the website, you can order one of their 3 books that they distribute for free. This is one of them. So apart from this one, there's another one, I think was the original content of the founder of this organization and the author, I think. Maybe it's also called 60,000 Hours or something. And then another one, which I don't remember, and this one. And I find this one to be most interesting. So, because I never really read anything relevant to this topic, like about human extinction and so forth. So, existential risks is kind of like a buzzword, but this is really talking about the existential risk, right? So I was like, okay, that's definitely worth like get to know like about. So I ordered it and started recently.
Do you somehow associate reading with running mentally?
That's a very interesting metaphor. In a way, yes. But when you're in a way, when you're reading, you're conversing with the author. Even though it seems single-sidedly, but obviously your brain is working when you're going through sentences line by line. And you get input and you start thinking about certain ideas and so forth. And when you're running, it's more like a conversation with yourself. Yeah. So I think running was like super calming. It's like one of the most calming sport that I can do.
What would you like to achieve with when you run, when you say today I'm going to run? Would you like to run faster? Would you like, I don't know, to sweat more? Would you like to run longer? Would you like to just to be by yourself? So could also be walking, not running?
Most of the time, it's out of physical needs that I want to run. It's like kind of like if I feel too agitated or I feel stressed or I feel too exhausted. If that sounds weird, but it's true. Like it's like there's the mental exhaustion, right? And there's the physical one. So a lot of times you just kind of want to go blank somehow. And want to kind of release some of the tension that you have. So
you get that with running?
Yeah, definitely. No, you release it, right?
Yeah,
when you run.
I mean, like the blank stage of your.
Yes, definitely.
You're running for a long time?
Depends. Comparing to who?
Just to yourself.
To myself, so I started in, I would say, steadily the last year in Milan. 2018, 19, 2018, 19.
You do it regularly, like 3 times a week or every day?
Recently, not so often. So if I can, once, twice a week, if I can. But before, when I was in Shanghai, for instance, every day, 6K on average. Yeah.
That's kilometers or miles?
Kilometers.
I guess kilometers.
Yeah. It's not a lot, but it's a good amount of time.
If you do that often, it's a lot.
I mean, if you do it often, right? So it's about also consistency. I don't really have, I think my goal would change, like, because one day I would feel like, okay, today I want to push on myself, right? So maybe other day I just feel actually too tired and I actually don't want to run. And you just say, okay, come on, 1K, you can run 1K. And you can. 1K is like 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Yeah.
Is it a cultural thing where they come from? Are Chinese people sports people or no? For example, if you take people from Brazil, let's say, most of them do sports. It's a culture thing.
Yeah.
Austrians do hiking, Germans do hiking, Switzerland does hiking.
Yeah. I think it depends probably on the region. But in general, I would say Austrian people are definitely more sportive than Chinese people. Just on average, I'm saying.
Okay.
Just in general, the mentalities here seems to be very active. I also know like very sportive people in China, like from school and just people that I live around with. For instance, in the South, in Guangzhou, people like to do like light sports, like playing badmintons. For instance, you have like this Chinese national sport, like ping pong, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
Like even elderlies do it like almost daily. Like there are people like that. So it depends. I think it would be personal in this case. But on average, I would say here the people are definitely more like active. Yes. So they're also much more conscious about being active. While in China, like I would like have to sometimes, for instance, my mom was like, oh, come on, like do some sports, like go out for a walk sometimes. And yeah, so I think it depends. And then it gets like very personal. It depends on your own habits. And
of course.
Yeah, exactly.
And you get along here with all international people or also Austrians? Do you hang out with mainly here? Like,
I hang out with all kinds of people. I actually think there's a very small Chinese community here.
Okay.
I only know one Chinese and recently. So that's just like, yeah, it's the opposite, exact opposite as back then when I was in Italy. So in Italy, there's like huge Chinese community.
Maybe it's a language that is easier to learn, Italian rather than German, or why there are not many Chinese in.
I think that definitely came from a historical background. So I think just historically, there's a specific region in China, not so far from Shanghai. This region, the people there is very famous for exploring like excursions outside of China. So they really do a lot of businesses. They sail far away and they find new lands and new countries to live in and settle down and do businesses. So merchants. And then, for instance, I think 98% of the Chinese people in Italy are from that region.
Right.
Just insane. Yeah, but here it's maybe just like historically there was not such a strong bondage. So if you imagine like bringing back to Italy the context, so if you immigrated first as let's say a family, so the husband first came, found a job or like started a small business, then he would most likely bring his wife and kids. And then this generation settled. And then, of course, then they get married and the kids also have kids, so grandkids. And then most likely you will also bring some relatives, maybe your brother, maybe your brother's family, you know. That's how it started. That's why there's like this huge network of explicitly the people from this region in China. So,
but it's pretty much like Italians in America. Most of them come from the South. Because one goes first, and he takes his family, and then his cousins.
Exactly. So in Austria, I guess it's just that they didn't choose Austria.
Yeah. Well,
in the beginning.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise.
You'll find this. Or your friends or your family will be able to hear to this podcast on the international.at, or they can find it on Spotify. These are Apple Podcasts. I don't know, everywhere where there are podcasts, you'll be able to find the international podcast. By the way, we have a new magazine. I'll give you a copy as soon as we go on.
Please do.
Yes, and if anyone wants it, just text me, email me. There's an email if you go to the website. We have an Instagram page. It's called the international.at.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of requests there as well. You can also get me on LinkedIn. By the way, my name is Alyon Chachi and your name is Kaven.
Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yes.
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 It's the first time in this episode, at least, that I pronounce both my name and your name.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. I think you didn't really introduce yourself in the 2 episodes that I heard.
I never introduce myself, to be honest, but I also don't like to do the classical introduction thing at the opening, like, this is Kaven, because if I say a lot of things about you, then what are you going to say about yourself? But thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So you're going to be in Vienna for long? You plan to live here?
Yes, I'm
Then we'll catch up again.
Definitely.
How do I say bye-bye in Chinese?
再见.
What's that?
再见.
再见? Okay, then 再见, Kevin.
Thank you.